Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, YouTube. And hi, everybody here. We're getting into our story gathering and Wednesday meetup planning meeting today on Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. And we just had a question come up in our pre-recorded kind of gathering on what are all of our meetings and how do they work. So I'm just going to come over here, and about 2 months ago, we started talking about doing lunar sprint cycles. And we picked lunar just because it's kind of getting back into a connection with nature. And one of the nice things is with the lunar cycles, there's a giant progress bar in the sky, so you know where you are all around the world within our thing. And basically, we started these flavors of the different 4-week periods, which are split into 2 sprints, and each sprint is 2 weeks long. So there's 2-week sprints within this lunar cycle. And the goal was on a new moon, we start new things, and then we go through a sprint planning on the first Monday. Every Tuesday is a story gathering meeting, which is really when we start looking at stories and what we want to work on and start filling up our backlog. Wednesdays, we have our community meeting, but it's also a time for us to report on our progress through the week. Thursdays is a focus day. There are no meetings, so that people are able to at least have one day where they can focus and not get that split up by meetings. And then on Friday, we have a standard kind of working meeting. It's totally optional, but it's a time for people to sync up and talk about what's going on. And then that Friday changes every second week, where we have a demo, sprint reflection, and a little celebration for the sprint to wrap it up. And then the second sprint kind of works to unblock things, adjust course, and then the final week is around completion and reflection. So they generally continue the same. We kick it off with sprint planning, story gathering, our Wednesday community meetings, Thursday no meetings, a sync, and then we end the week with this Wednesday becomes our community council day, where we have a chance to reflect and talk about what's coming up for people. And then on that Friday, we finish and have our demo day celebration. So that's kind of the rhythm that we're trying to fall into. We've had 2 of these now, and we're currently in our 3rd sprint cycle, week 2 today. So today is this meeting, and we just use this board to sign up people who want to be facilitator, scribe, and admin. And that's kind of where we're at. Do you have any questions, Grace, on that high level? I guess also just with the sprint board, we pick 3 high-level goals for the week, and then put some user stories underneath it of things that the community will work on. And then basically we have some instructions here. Select core roles for the sprint planning. Commitment is for these 2 weeks. Use tags to assign names to roles, and use the goals column to identify 3 sprint goals. And then these are just kind of a description of the different roles for each meeting and what they do. But this kind of a very loose, we have D-work in flight, but it's kind of complicated. Not a lot of people use it. So this is kind of a user-friendly way, just kind of, we have stickies on the board and we can put them on, edit them, move them around.
Okay, cool. I mean, I feel like I've come at a time when there's not a lot happening. So I wonder, that seems like a lot of meetings to me.
Yeah, and it's not intended that if you're actively participating, then the Wednesdays are a good place. If you're taking some of these user stories and working on stuff, then you
What are the
certainly don't
user
need
stories? The user stories are how to get people onboarded to this group?
So it may be I'll just interject the user stories, the sprint, the stand-up, the demo day, the reflection, all of these are vocabulary from the Agile framework, or the
software
Scrum.
development world. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a software. It's a sort of a organizational method from the software development world, and so that's what some of this terminology is. And here you had asked about the user story, and here's our bit on the user story.
A user story basically contains a why and then a what, and the why is the story, and it would be like as some stakeholder, and then some kind of thing. And then we have conditions of satisfaction. And then we leave the how up to the person taking it and using their own creativity to figure out how to deliver that. But that's kind of just to capture what we want to accomplish. And
I think this is super useful for anybody watching this just as an intro. And this might even be a really good clip to just clip up. Like, this is how we're doing things.
Yeah. And we are using Agile methodology as a way of just kind of structuring how we do stuff. It adds a little bit of a layer of accountability, which will help people deliver on a regular cadence. And yeah, so today we are in story gathering, and it's really a time for us to think about what user stories do we want? What's important to do over the next 2 or 3 weeks?
Do you know who these users are and what, like, are these just users? When you think of users, is those are participants in the Cardano4Climate group?
It could be any stakeholder. So it could be this community. So for example, our goal here for paying out the treasury for Fund 7 and 8, the people who care about that are the people who contributed and are expecting some kind of reward. C4C in 2023, that's a larger set of stakeholders, and it could be all the projects that we want to bring in and onboard. It could be the existing community. And then for the post-summit promotion of impact, yeah, the stakeholders here are people outside of the community who want to find out more about what's going on. But it could be any stakeholder that we want to create positive outcomes for. And then, so we create the user stories in order to capture what we're trying to accomplish. And it also gives us a way to be clear on what we want to do together. Because of the format, this gives it kind of with the why and the what, hopefully we can get on track without overly micromanaging how people deliver things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
So right now, if it sounds like the tasks you have are quite administrative. We have to distribute funds when there's already kind of been decided what to do with them. We're promoting stuff we've already done. We're wrapping up the year and then moving on, you know, right now at the beginning of the moon, but or the end of the moon, depending on how you look at it, right? This is sort of the last week, right? Before the 2 days, right? So I don't know if this is a beginning or an end because the full moon is 2 days from now, right? So, you know, and there's a real good wrap here. Like, we're wrapping up the end of the Cardano sub and moving towards what will our next year be about. And so for somebody just joining like myself, this is kind of like, I'm mildly interested in wrapping last year. I read the report that Yoram did. I'm like, wow, it's really impressive how much of that got done. And I'm very interested in what is going to be the next direction. And I think that until now, there's been what you guys have done is brought together a lot of people and a lot of projects without directionality. And then the next thing will be moving into a directionality for the organization rather than a whole bunch of individual projects at directionality. That's how it looks like to me. That's what I'm interested in, just to say what I'm interested in. Because I've been to a lot of meetings. And one of the things you have to understand about me is I've been to a lot of meetings compared to how much I've seen got done. And that has to do with the nature of when I joined. And I'm very anxious to see, okay, what are we doing?
Yeah, so we are wrapping up the year. Fund
Yeah.
10 has been delayed till February probably. So we are in kind of this empty zone where there isn't a whole lot going on. So yeah, we are wrapping up, reflecting and then planning for 2023 when things pick up again. And one of the goals I think is how do we focus our community on a fewer things rather than trying to accept and accommodate everything that pops up. And the other one is, I think, really important for people is sustainability. How do we continue as a group and an organization without having to go back and ask for funding over and over again? And are there models we can use outside of Catalyst in the greater Cardano ecosystem to generate more sustainability? So at least the core team and people who participate regularly are able to do it sustainably without having to go find day jobs.
I'm very interested at this moment in hearing a little bit more about your worldviews. Because as we talk about, I mean, I don't know if this is a good agenda item or not, because I'm not really clear that, but I'm very curious, because I've been really thinking about this since meeting all of you people, like what is it going to look like to bring things together? And then the question kind of is, what is it that you guys, and it's going to be different for each person, so I want to hear each of your opinions, like when you think about, okay, this is Cardano4Climate and we have to do something because, you know, climate, like we live in one and it seems erratic. What is your, like, what have you learned over the last year or last years in terms of what you see is kind of a framework for change, either a theory of change or a framework of where we can really have impact completely outside of Cardano? Like Cardano was a mechanism that brought some people together. It's really wonderful, but like outside of like, and some of it could be from what you've seen in Cardano, but it could be who you brought in is a function of your theory of change and what you think the points are to touch on. So yeah, that's my question to each of you is like, what's your theory of change? How are we going to actually change things? And then where are the points that make sense to put a focus on? And this is kind of just the start of a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, is that okay to talk about that here, or did we have something else on the agenda?
It could, I mean, that could work into story gathering. We, I guess,
think we can stop sharing screen, maybe.
as in, we do, it's just the bottom of the hour. And I'm mindful of the time. It's bottom of the hour. We do want to get to the Wednesday plan, but I think that would be a fascinating sort of discussion. But we shouldn't let it go too long because we do want to spend some time planning for Wednesday's meetup.
Well, maybe we should plan for Wednesday first, and then figure out what, and then figure out however much time we have left. We do that.
Okay, let's jump to Wednesday planning. We don't need the sprint board for that, but we do we have a Wednesday agenda, Doc?
Oh, let's see. I will look it up. I bet we do. I think.
Okay.
I'll find
that. The meat of Wednesday is to do a 2022 reflection. So we're going to gather stories. We're going to gather what we did, what people want to celebrate, what didn't go so well, what we can improve, and kind of use it as a time for reflection. There's a lot happened, so it would be great to spend some time as a community collecting all that. So I'll be preparing a mural board and a little facilitated reflection session around that, but that'll take up the bulk of the meeting. I don't know if we're presenting anything.
Well, let's see. There is a sign up form for presenting. Let's see what the last person. No, there's none in our the official channel of the sign up. So as far as presentations, it looks like it might just be the bulk of the reflection session. Now we have that format of kind of an update and then like partner updates.
Okay.
But there's not a slideshow or an agenda document. We normally just use the agenda for on this Tuesday meeting, like when we plan, we just make basically agenda items, and then we'll slide that over to a slide deck if we're using a slide deck. But generally what happens in these meetings is an introduction and orientation, and it's outwardly focused. So that's generally where we get new members, like people that just roll in and want, to check it out. Either they find out about it on meetup.com or in just the general Catalyst chat. And then we do spotlights, basically where we feature either a partnership, a proposal, a funded project, or an event. And then we'll do breakout rooms. So it feels like the spotlight now is, and this is sort of, we haven't really seen how the Wednesday meetups in this new sort of agile sort of how it fits in the sprint framework. But we could spotlight just reflection, or one of our goals for the sprint.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you want to do a retro, no? Like this is a retro of the summit, right? So that, I think there's an agile methodology for that. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Melanie. Yeah, we did a retro of the summit last week. This is going to be a retro of 2022. So the entire year, everything we did. Yeah.
And what was great about how you did the retro last week that you want to continue, and what could be better about the retro last week that you want to bring in for this week?
So last week we captured a bunch of stuff. I think the difference this week is I would love to focus on stories and have people talk about what are the things that pop out into their minds as things that were meaningful to them. Because I think we did a lot of great events like Impact Fest and the Cardano Summit and meeting people and other things. And then the other side of it will be to talk about what are some areas for improvement for 2022. People have brought up things like we did way too much. We need to focus. Catalyst isn't sustainable. We need sustainability. All sorts of stuff like that. So just to have that place to look at both sides, and then really as a community start that conversation, or maybe not tomorrow, but the week after, to really look at what's 2023 going to look like and how do we get there. And maybe not plan it all out, but at least have some strong themes and ideas of how we're going to launch, how we're going to operate, how we're going to do things, and what are some of the things that we want to accomplish in 2023. Yeah, and I think, a lot of people are in a reflective mood right now and thinking about what's going on and things that went well and things that didn't go so well. So I think it's a good time, especially with not a whole lot else going on in the community.
So that one of the, and Grace, this might be for your benefit, we do have stated goals, and one of those sort of general goals is to support the Catalyst community that are interested in or focused on impact. And so we take our keynote from the phase of Catalyst, just like we take the keynote of the moon for our sprint phases. So what's Catalyst doing right now? They're in reflection. They're in this hiatus. We're kind of really stopped. And so what happens during hiatus? So we want to support the reflective mood and theme. So we reflected on Summit. Now we'll reflect on like the past year. And all that does is set us up for the next stage of planning and getting into that. And we have time. We have time now because things won't start up until the middle of Q1 2023.
Yeah, and it'll give us time to really get organized for how we want to support Fund 10, because there's always a lot of activity there.
I don't know what to say because I asked a totally different question. My question was, what was great about last week's retro that you want to bring into this week? And what things would you like to improve so that this week's retro will be even better than last week's? It was like I'm being meta. I'm asking a retro question about the retro.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and also it's been planned for a little bit that we'll have this retro right now coming up next week and the week after. So I think, I was glad for the summary, that this came up, and where it fits in the bigger picture for sure. Grace, you always
I mean,
catch us,
I
so-
like the answer I got. It just wasn't an
yeah.
answer to the question. I learned a lot from what you said,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the answer to the question I asked. So I'm asking again.
We'll get back on point. I love the way you do this for us. So, but yeah, good morning. And can I interject?
I'm just super curious, that's all.
Yeah. Can I interject? We're not meeting in half hour or 20 minutes? Like I thought we switched them.
Nope. We switched Wednesday and Friday, but Monday and Tuesday stayed the same.
Oh, okay. Because that's going to be hard for me. I've got the generator running already, but that's life. Okay, so now I know. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Back to the answering the question.
I think for me, what went well last week was the conversation and seeing the joy on everybody's faces on the importance of meeting face to face and being able to make that human connection. But for the process itself, I think there was a lot of good sharing. There was everybody participated. Things that didn't go so well, there were fewer people at that meeting and recently at our community meetings than usual, but I think that's because we're in between funds and people are they seem to coalesce around funds because we do a lot of work helping people write proposals and get their message out there for funding. So that's something to think about. But the core team continues to show up, participate, and we have, another thing that really went well for me was we have a new cohort of people that have kind of come in recently. Grace, you're included in that, but TP and a few others that it's really exciting to see people kind of leaning in and then getting ready for 2023. But yeah, as a process, that's kind of where I sat. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Melanie. You were there. I don't know.
Well, last week was Way of Counsel, right?
Yeah, but the week before was the summit reflection.
Oh, okay.
We did.
Okay, that's what we're talking about then.
Yeah.
Okay, the week before. Okay, gotcha.
I
think for me, it's always a collection of information. Like, where does it go? How do we organize it? That's always seems to be something that we fall short of. It's like we're trying to do it all. And with more people coming on board, I think it's going to, get better in the future. So, but yeah, definitely numbers. Maybe it's a matter of the excitement around coming together again. I think we're all really tired. That's my thinking for lack of numbers. And I'm not worried about it really, because it will come around. We all need to have these hiatuses and just take a little break, and it'll come back. So I guess that's not really much of a reflection on, a week ago, but that's the big thing, is that we don't have a lot of input at the moment. So.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think we had the same last year. So I mean, pretty much whole Catalyst last year made a break in December.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a good thing to mention. We should probably figure out over the next week what the C4C break looks like, just so that we can set expectations for meetings. But I would recommend the last 2 weeks are kind of off for the community, and then gives people time to do whatever they're going to do with their friends, family, holiday plans.
It also might provide an opportunity to kind of hype up the next meeting. Like, okay, we're going to be meeting, after the holiday, and this is the agenda. All you people who haven't been to the last few meetings, it's time for you to, re-engage.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reflecting on So one of the things that occurs to me that you guys do really well is make people feel good about participation and create an environment where people feel heard and where there's just inspiration. The inspiration is present in your meetings. Sorry, I'm in a co-working space and things all of a sudden can happen at any moment. Things can happen. People can come in this week, like the snow fairy and some sort of, they have 3 Santa Clauses here. Showed up. That's not what happened now. It's like sort of it's a new center, so people are coming in to report on it because in Slovenia, this is like opening of a co-working space. It could be news. Anyway, yeah, so that's what you do really well. And then I think compartmentalize, but creating structure is less of a strength. And it might be useful that as you set up the Miro board for tomorrow, have categories of feedback. So that people be like, okay, here's all the things that belong to the money category, here's the people category, here's the projects, maybe not projects, but like environmental projects, HR type projects, like sort of types of things that have shown up. And so maybe based on the feedback from one another or from your ideas, like put little categories, and then you'll be able to see where the notes, like where the sticky notes show up. And that gives like a weight to where you can get the most juice out of it. Even just really visually, like, oh, there's a lot of notes over there. What's that about? Maybe that's something we want to dive deeper into.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
And then other categories might be like organizing committee from the organizing committee. So you might have a color, like if you've been one of the organizers, use the color yellow. And if you've just been a participant, then use the color green. And if you actually got funding in this round, use the color orange. And then you can also see where the notes are posted based on the type of person who posted them. Again, I'm just making up types and categories, but it would be really cool to have that kind of visual.
I love these ideas. For the categories, one thing we have done in the past is have it kind of freeform and then spend a few minutes for people to start sorting them into piles. And it can be interesting to see what piles organically kind of appear there. And you go, oh, this one is totally about community. And it doesn't constrain what people are writing down. So that, yeah, but I'll think about that because it might be helpful to have a few out there to kind of seed the thoughts and then have a big other space where people can kind of put what they think.
Yeah, I think you could probably do both just by making the other space really big. Like have the categories, but other is half. Yeah. So it really invites you to not speak within the categories.
Yeah, I love that.
Because sometimes, when you come in, it's like, oh, I have these thoughts, and it's like, I have no idea where they belong. I just got to get them out, spill my beans, and then it starts making sense. But if you have to start reading things, it directs your thinking. So I do like this open space and just come together and collect. I like the idea of taking both categories for the people that need to know. They've already got it all figured out. And that big space for open space. Just love it. Really do. Yeah.
And it also indicates like, we don't really know. We think these are some categories, but like, tell us.
Exactly. It's like having the other on a form. Always have an option for other, because we centralize it too much when we think about all the things that we think are there, but it opens up for others. Miro board, if we have new people coming, do we have a little section for how to use Miro? Or do we get into that at all? Because we're just assuming that
we can do a very quick intro to Miro board and how to use it, at least how to create a sticky and how to move it around.
And then the other thing is for the people that get completely lost, just write it in the chat. We'll take those. Somebody will copy and paste them to a sticky for them. And then we just have to find out if we are doing the categories, if they're funded or not. And
Yeah.
so you said that there was the categories funded, 3 of them.
Have core team, funded proposals, and participants.
So
Or
what happens when you got more than one category? That's
You-
the only
you
thing.
pick one that most resonates with who you
Okay,
are.
so there you go.
Or,
Just
yeah,
an
or most
explanation.
resonate, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could resonate with that particular complaint. Like as a participant, I have complaint A, and as a organizing member, I have complaint B. And so depending on my role at the moment that I'm making this, or I have whatever, this amazing experience as a participant, but not the most, so you can be both depending on what the particular discussion's about.
And that slides us right into the user story, context that's as a, it's how the user story begins. So that would be, but I think that'd be a big benefit.
Yeah. And you could also say, like, these are the users that we thought of and the colors we want for them. Does anybody have themselves in a different category? And then just make sure everybody has a color of sticky that feels right
Mine's
to
purple. Just it's off the chart. If you give out 3 colors, I'll pick another one. For the rebels can be purple or some pick another color, black. Yeah.
The other thing that I think is important, especially coming it to the end of things, is always to make sure that if there's something you felt you needed to say and wasn't listened to, even if it's really nasty and as soon as you say it, you'll be like, yeah, I don't really feel that way, but I just needed to get it off my chest. Like making sure that might not be this meeting, but it might be the following meeting. Like we want to make sure that before we start to create something new, that everything from the past is complete. And so that might be not this week, but the next week's reflections or whatever. Like we just want to make sure that you're not going into the new year with something on your chest that we didn't hear or that you didn't feel acknowledged. Or acknowledgement is also incredibly powerful. I don't know, have you guys done acknowledgement exercises? I would guess this group has.
We have a wall of appreciation that we've been using where people can post up stickies and just recognize people for the work they've done. So the 7th, we're going to do a backwards looking retrospective. The 14th, we're going to do a forwards looking kind of ideation thing. And then the 21st will be kind of it could be our last meeting and use that.
I thought we weren't.
Yeah, I thought you just said you were going to take that week off.
I was just thinking, but it would be nice to have, because we do Way of Council, which is kind of our space for what you just said, where it's a safe space where everyone has an opportunity to say what's on their mind or heart. And maybe that's the only meeting that week, is just have a Way of Council to close it up. And
on the 21st, you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be call kind it a holiday party.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just thinking the same thing. Our Christmas party for C4C falls on December 21st. No gifts required. Just show up.
The gift of presence.
Yes.
Presence. Your presence is required, but nothing else. No secret Santas. I like that. And thanks for that, Grace, because that helps, get that stuff off. And I think if we focus on the retrospective, just stuff, and the forward looking, and then we really get into the heart of stuff in the Way of Council, when we can, no recording, we can open up and just make sure that we're all on the same, not necessarily on the same wavelength, but that we're still close enough that nobody's way off and feeling out of it.
And tomorrow, just looking at the sprint board, Melanie, you signed up to be the admin.
Yeah, sorry, I've fallen very far short this week.
That's okay. But
New Year's resolution, I'll do better in January.
Tomorrow's an hour later, so yeah, you won't have to fire up your generator, I hope. Okay. But if you could, since we talked about being really inclusive, if people don't know how to use Miro and they want to use Zoom chat, Can you take the admin role for that to
Absolutely.
translate? Okay. Awesome. Cool. And then we have 9 minutes left. Maybe we can transition into what Grace wanted to talk about before Wednesday planning and for set for tomorrow. And maybe just talk a little bit about.
Is there any slide deck or anything for tomorrow? Nothing. Just a Miro board, right?
Yeah, Miro board, reflection and conversation.
So meetup update and do we want to, sorry, I'm going to get really quick on this.
Yeah.
Do we want to add the Miro board to the meetup?
I don't know if we have to, 'cause I can share that at the meeting unless.
Okay. So what I'll do, I'll do in the meetup, I'll just say we're going to be using Miro board. Here's a quick how to use Miro board on there. And the main focus for meetup will be retrospective, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to also just say that next week is looking forward, and then we'll have our way of council is our Christmas party. So I'll put it all in the same meetups, and then we can use those for gathering people, because that's one thing we haven't been doing a lot of is Telegram reminding people here's the meetup, sign up.
Right.
But we'll get back into it. No worries.
Okay.
Anything else that I should add for those? And is that good? Retrospective, looking forward, and Christmas party, or do we want to call it? We're going to call it a holiday party first off.
Yeah, I think 7th can be the retrospective for 2022, and the 14th is the forward-looking 2023.
So let's call it C for C in 2023.
Yeah.
Instead of looking forward or forward looking.
Yeah.
Is that okay? And
that's for the 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the 14th, and then the 21st is the holiday party and way of council.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Got my.
All right. Last 8 minutes.
Sure.
So it's almost perfect because in some ways it's something that we want to think about for next time, because next week is going to be looking forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to do super fast check-in, like a super fast temperature check that just puts a framing on this. So if you're showing your video, it'll work really well. Okay. So you could look at where we are in history as between two, you could be like in on a different, at different, I'm going to call it scales. And you might say, okay, this is the bottom, this is the top. And at the bottom we have, look, we can't avoid disaster. Climate disaster is coming. No matter what you do, we're already in collapse. And at the top is, don't worry, technology is going to solve it. It's going to be fine. And so it's kind of like everybody to put their hand, like, where do you think? Don't worry, technology will solve it. We just got to get ourselves together. It's just too late. It's like collapsing. Just to give one another also an idea of where we are on that thing. I'm going to be doing that in my workshop for those of you who signed up as well.
Is anybody else coming to the workshops?
Nori is.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, so like, where are you on the category? Like, of like, where are we?
So that's the top, that's the bottom.
The top is, don't worry, it's technology always solves it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so this is useful, right? Like now you know something about each other you didn't know before, right? Okay, I look at solutions. When I look at solutions, this is, you say about yourself, like it's gotta help now. It's gotta be short-term, like anything that is gonna help immediately. It's gotta be, or like I'm looking 7 generations ahead. So what I'm working on is like something for right now, because it's an emergency, gotta put your finger in the dike, or no, I'm looking at systems change way far out. So everybody can put themselves in that range too. And there's obviously no right answer, but when you have a conversation with somebody, like when you're going to go next week and prioritize something, right? Like, it's like some people are like, I'm over here, right? You're like both. You want to do both. You're like,
I'm
I
looking
got
for
one,
win-win.
I got one
Yeah,
hand here,
I'm
one
like
here.
this.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, totally fine.
I'm more like this.
Because there's people starving, right?
But not
you know,
me. I guess that's what it is, and that's my burden, is that I'm not starving. I'm not fine. I'll be fine. I'm not in a shoulder community. But it could be that I'm just saying that I'm temporarily inconvenienced millionaire, because I did have to evacuate from the fires and my house and so and so. But my house, like I had a house, so whatever.
It's totally fine. It's a way of starting to think about what is our strategy for next year based on how are people thinking about this.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, look, local solutions are the way. Everybody's gonna have to do local. I love local solutions, maybe like, city, regional. I work on global solutions. So again, just show of hands, like where you are in terms of what like speaks to you. Yeah,
Local,
like
global.
yeah, like there's like regional,
mhm.
and then there's global. I think
Sort of in this.
somewhere around here.
Sort of in that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, is it about what we want to work on, or what do you think is
What you generally find yourself
most
pulled
important, or-
towards. Yeah. What you find yourself pulled towards. Yeah. I tend to be full way out. And again, that's just going to be a way of starting to think about the question that I asked, which is, what's your theory of change? And how do you think we're going to solve these, the climate crisis? Because if you look at the projects that we have in this group, very few of them are focused on that. Very few. And
or at least
a
we can
lot of
find
them
out.
are local.
At least we can find out where they are, right? We can put them on that perspective. Is this a template that we can use elsewhere? Litercoin would be considered a global. Pike is considered local. But it'd be really cool to actually place those in those.
Yeah, Litercoin's also hyper local. Each participant is
super,
only like
local.
what's in front of them.
Oh,
So it's an
literally
interesting
at their
mix,
feet.
right?
Yeah.
true.
And so, but you can see, yeah.
So in clarifying the question, when you talk about local versus global, is it the solution is a global, or is it the activity itself? I look at Bam Nut milk. Yeah, it's localized, but the solution is, I see it having global effects, as far as having templates and a way of choosing traceability in supply chain and setting up regenerative projects. So it's hard to say that, yeah, this is just local, because it's so much bigger. We may be able to support food banks, because of this project in other countries. So that makes it more global.
It's sort of, if you believe in the fractal universe, if you kind of have a holographic viewpoint or perspective, then it's just how is it manifesting? So yeah.
So sorry, Grace, in what you just took us through, will you take the whole group through something like this? Just so, like.
We can. I think what's really important just to acknowledge is how many of our conversations throughout the day, we're having a conversation with somebody who has such a different idea of like, what's a long time?
Mm-hmm.
What's too long to, what's a short time? When we don't think about it, what's important right now? Versus, because it's true, if you're working on long-term solutions, some people are going to go hungry.
Mm-hmm.
That is the case. It's just the case that you have to make that decision. It's not there's no right or wrong answers to these. It just helps you understand, oh, how could he be saying that? Oh, there's another one, which is like, when you provide a solution, how revolutionary it is. Like, no, people really need something like cryptocurrencies. It's close to money. It's got to be really similar to money because they can't think of anything out of the box to, no, people are going to go wild. We can go as crazy as we want. It'll take a while for the early adopters, but you know, I'm not looking for something that's an incremental change. Like there's also that, like I'm looking for incremental changes that people understand versus like, cause I'm up here, I'm like, I don't care. If people don't understand it, I'm going to find my first users, right? And we're all somewhere in there. So Melanie says she's in the middle.
Yeah, below middle, because it has to be user friendly. Because if you can't use it right now, then yeah.
And notice the languaging, it has to be. So anybody who has like this perspective, like my perspective, they're just a little bit crazy because it has to be. We always use that. It has to be immediate. It has to be understandable. It has to be, when we're talking about what we're doing, it's so amazing how we use that phrase all the time. It has to be.
I think we're taking our community to a deeper level because I think it's a safe community where we know each other. We feel we can open up, but now it's like, okay, let's learn more about each other. So how we can get past misunderstandings, get to the actual work, and then find also our guys. Oh, you really focus on long-term solutions. Wow, this is the project for you. Focus on this. Not to tell people what to do, but just to let, you know, recognize that there's this there when people are looking for the place that they need to be.
Well, I think there's something else that I'm pointing at, which is that as a group, we want to start operating as a group and not as a whole bunch of like, okay, everybody shoot in the direction you want. It's like, no, there's a target. There's a target, and you guys might think we need to use, you know, the artillery, and you guys might think we need to go in there and offer them a peace agreement. But let's agree like where we're going and start to look like a movement. And some of us are going to have to compromise because we may decide we're only going to work on watersheds, just as an example. And that means everybody else is going to be left out. And like either you're on board or we do a process that makes you feel like that's what this year's about. Next year might be about your thing. And that's what I'm pointing at, because I think last year was fantastic in terms of really being super inclusive, but it caused this, like there's noise. So anyway, I don't want to keep you guys too long.
Yeah, I recognize we're at the top of the hour. I'll be preparing the retro board today for tomorrow, and I appreciate all the feedback and input on that. Would you be interested, Grace, in facilitating next week for the forward-looking?
For the forward-looking?
Yeah.
I just need to make sure that my schedule allows for that. So that's right at this time.
Yeah, it starts now, tomorrow, or next week, tomorrow.
On Wednesday, on the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can do that. I'll put that on my calendar. I saw somebody's having like a little Christmas party, but it's a little further than I want to drive. Okay.
That would be amazing.
Okay, and I'll write that in the meetup.
Okay, yeah, so I'll facilitate a process which helps people start to think about if we were going to come together, what would we be focusing on for the year? And that also creates more sustainability, by the way, because right now the only thing that keeps us together is we know how to apply for funds for Catalyst. So if you're in that category, we can help you.
I'm not going to say we do very well at that because we know how to apply for them, but to actually get them is whole other game. And so, yeah. Do you want to do a write up, something? Because I know it'd be nice to have you in the meetup as we promote next week. We've got tomorrow retrospective, going to be really quick, but we have enough time to prepare for next week.
A little write up of what we're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah.
It's only
just we'll be thinking about 2023. We're going to provide some frameworks, and I'll say they're going to be useful to you if you're planning your life for 2023. If you do an annual planning session, you can use these same tools, and we can make a little bit of a big deal about it. Like you're going to get some cool tools.
Perfect. I love that. I'd like to feature you as a facilitator. Sure. So like a LinkedIn or something like that.
Yeah, you might look at my DAOleadership.com is probably the best address for that. it makes me look like I wrote the book or something, because I did.
Okay, so let's work on that together, you and me, Grace, and then I'll just make sure that I've got it right and do that.
All right.
And it's 1 week too late for people to join my workshop, like if because it starts Tuesday. So
it starts next Tuesday, but see, we're going to start advertising already.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if people love the work, they come to test it out, they're not going to be able to join my workshop.
No, that's okay. But we can always put a blurb in
saying,
workshop.
Yeah. If you're interested in Grace's workshop, now is the only time you can sign up, because the registration's closing on Monday. Yeah.
Okay, registration closes. Okay.
We can mention that tomorrow.
Yeah.
For sure.
Totally.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I've got about 5 spaces in the evening and 5 spaces in the morning for people to join, so it's almost full.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I love being able to give them something they can take away to use on their own personal life, because then getting back to Newman's kind of fractal thing, you can work in this personal space as well as the community space. And
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I think this gives also a good framework for you guys to like come next week and we can talk about this for ourselves. Like, what did I see about myself and how I'm thinking about this group.
Amazing.
Thank you for falling into our group, Grace. Just like heaven sent you, universe sent you our way for some reason or another at this point in time. So thank you for being here.
I'm telling you, it's the Jewish conspiracy. Yoram brought me in.
Okay, there you go. And Simon, you don't know very well because some of our members flit in and out, life happens and stuff. So Simon will figure out how to figure out where you are and how all this new stuff going on. Yeah, sprints.
Good to see you though, Simon.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Sorry for being so quiet, but there was a lot of new stuff going on. Nice to be back. I hope I can join more frequently now again. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
Also the traveling.
Yeah.
Good to see you, really. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
Very good.
Welcome back. All right, YouTube.
Where are you, Simon?
I'm from Austria.
Oh, neighbors. Neighbors.
Oh, yeah, I should have known, of course. Since you're from Europe, you're probably from Switzerland?
No, Slovenia. I'm Israeli.
Oh.
That's why I'm joking about that. But I live in Slovenia.
Cool. Nice to get to know you.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for a great
Okay.
meeting.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.